Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and welcome to my July 2019 horoscope report for you. It is my intention for this video to give you the information that I believe that you need to make this the best month possible and learn a little astrology while you're at it. Definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, where I have a very extensive astrology blog, including blogs on the new and full moons and how best to use those power periods. If you are interested in learning astrology and you resonate with how I teach, check out my astrology apprenticeship program, also at anniehelpsyou.com. Definitely check out my new book, that has become a beautiful bedside companion and purse-toting companion for my fellow spiritual seekers, an Amazon bestseller, Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life and the World in 28 Days. And you can see that at radicalprayerbook.com. So what do we have in store for you this month? I'm going to go into lots of details. Let's check them out now. Hello, Cancer friends. Welcome to my July 2019 horoscope report for you. We've got birthdays to talk about, maximizing your birthday wishes. We've got the pre-birthday funk to talk about and how to best use that energy and what the universe is trying to show you through that. We've got lots of opportunities to redo your image, reevaluate your karmic relationships that are coming up very strongly as a long-term theme. Fated relationships could come in a major way. So clearing up of karma and bringing in of highly fated relationships are a huge possibility from this astrological standpoint for Cancers. We also have other things to talk about this month, and the eclipses, of course. Eclipse cycle is in your sign. So you've got a powerful new beginning opening up in the energy of Cancer, which is very specific for you. So the flow for the rest of this video is going to be as follows. I'm going to drop the charts in now, go into lots more details about the summary that I just shared, and then I'll drop in a Mercury Retrograde tutorial. We have Mercury Retrograde half of our lives. So even though you might be like, la 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 la, I don't want to hear anything more about Mercury Retrograde, people get so sick of hearing about it, right? But the more you understand about this transit, the more you can spend half of your life being in a more graceful rhythm. So I definitely want to afford you that opportunity. So after that, I will talk about the general transits that will no doubt affect you and the rest of the ideas and tones for the month that I think that you need to know in order to have the best month possible. So let's check out the Cancer charts now. Okay, so we're going to talk about a lot of things that will be true for all early, middle, and late degree Cancer placements, but there are going to be things that we segment out that could be different depending on your placement. So basically the early Cancer placements are the June born or 0 to 9 degrees, middle around July 1st through 10th or 10 to 19 degrees, and late degree Cancer from July 11th through the rest of the sign or 20 to 29 degrees. If you're asking the question, is this good for you if Cancer is your rising sign or moon? The answer is yes. The moon, the rising sign, the sun sign charts are all different windows that we look at our experience through. We experience life through, and each of them has a view of a piece of the pie or puzzle for you. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is birthdays. For those of you who didn't have your birthdays at the end of June, you're going to have your birthdays this month. This is when the sun in the sky gets back to the point in the chart where it was when you were born, or the point of the sky where it was when you were born. Each of the planets represents an experience of our lives, and the sun represents desire, manifestation, creativity, want. So, birthday wishes are astrological. Astrology doesn't get credit for a lot of the things that it is the root of. But this is true here. Birthday wishes are astrological. So the reason you get wishes is because when the sun gets back to the same point that it was at when you were born, a portal opens for your desires and your manifestation. Definitely do a search for making wishes come true, Annie, something like that. I have a video on helping you to best utilize your birthday wish time and other astrological power periods. Basically, you want to write down your wishes, say them out loud, and feel them as if they have already come true. In the weeks before you have the solar return, and by the way, if you're watching for your rising sign or moon, there is a special energy of rebirth for you, even if it's the sun's crossing over your moon or crossing over your ascendant. So you still get this energy of rebirth as well. In the weeks before the sun makes this crossover, the 12th house is where the sun moves through. And you can see how and why I section out early, middle, and late by the placement of the sun here. So you see for the early placements, the sun has already made this crossover here. Middle degree placements, you're going to have this crossover soon. And late degree placements, it's going to be more weeks into July before the sun crosses over. So you can see how all the planetary transits are staggered. And it takes a little bit more time for those of you at the end of the sign to have the experiences that those of you in the front have had already. Okay, so we have the pre-birthday funk in the weeks. Okay, so when the sun is in this 12th house, basically, it activates your fear section of your experience. The 12th house is the deep unconscious mind, and this is the place where tons of potential, all of our raw potential, all of our transgenerational blood, genetic, karmic energies are held. Past lives, if you're into those, you know, our full potential, whatever you want to look at it as, all of that's in the 12th house. And when the sun moves through there, it's like a spotlight on these deep hidden places. So fears can come up in a huge way, but also opportunities and things about yourself that you didn't know that you have access to. You can find hidden treasures during this time, and you can also unlock mysteries of your consciousness and your being and of creating the life that you want. You can have deep spiritual breakthroughs, deep psychological breakthroughs, and in general, it's very much about facing your fears. I always call it the Harry Potter placement because, you know, Harry Potter, the wizard with his wand, he is sad because of these things outside of him that are scary. And then he realizes it's all in his mind. It's the source. So then he changes it in his mind, and the external changes once he's changed himself internally, and then he's happy. So this is what is available to you now, is for you to convert all of this alchemy of converting the information that you get from this 12th house into the energy of rebirth. Something else to note about why the wonderful universe lines it up for us that we have these transits through the 12th house before the first house is so that it shows us what we don't want. When we're trying to manifest, we have to get super clear. And sometimes we need a reminder of what we don't want in order to be clear on what we do want. So that's a beautiful gift that we have from the universe in the time before our birthdays of the things that are not working for us. But if you don't know what's going on, it can be really scary. It can be stressful. It can be emotional. Some people can tend to try to escape this. Like those of my friends who start their partying for their birthday in the weeks before, probably it's because you're avoiding the energies that are uncomfortable that are coming up from this sun transit through the 12th house. So the more you can be present with what's going on and do something alchemical with it, the more you can set yourself up to create more of what you want instead of more of what you don't want. Okay, so the next thing is that, of course, we've got the solar eclipse in your sign. Solar eclipse and lunar eclipse cycles in your sign polarity are very intense. So Cancers have been going through massive change, especially since this eclipse cycle from the beginning, the middle of 2018, and this will run through the middle of 2020. Definitely watch my June horoscope report for Cancer as a sister reading to this, because in the June report, I go into massive detail about eclipses, about the eclipse cycle that we're working with, and where the eclipses are going to occur for you and what that can mean. There's so much going on in July that I had to break it up that way. And we do often feel the eclipse news and information coming in even in May. If for an early July eclipse. So these have been in effect, which is why I put them for June. But this is the month, July, when the eclipses are actually happening. So you definitely want to watch that report as well. Something else we have happening this month is Mercury Retrograde. Okay, so Mercury Retrograde is focusing its energy, and this is for early, middle, and late, focusing its energy on the first house. Those of you who are early degree placements or very early middle degree placements can have a little bit of this Mercury retrograde energy in the second house. So we're just going to talk about that really quick because that can come up in a big way as well. I am going to have a Mercury retrograde tutorial after this chart specific focus, so I do recommend that you listen to that and apply it to the information that we talked about here. Basically, the second house is the money house. So going back to old ways of making money can be very helpful for you. Old money problems can come back, many patterns, many issues, so that you can deal with them and clear them out. Money that's owed to you from the past, especially for you early and middle people. There's an increased chance of money coming back to you that was owed to you from the past. There's also this idea of going back to how you made money before. Old employers, old contacts, old clients, an old idea. That is going to be more in the forefront for you early and middle degree placements with the Mercury retrograde cycle. Now, what all of you are likely to experience with this Mercury retrograde cycle, since you all have focus in the first house, is reconsidering, re-looking at how it is you're presenting yourself to the world. This has a lot to do with your image. So like hair, wardrobe, skincare routines, health regimens, diet, issues that are involving anything with how you are appearance wise or how you are health wise. Can be questioned, can be revisited, can come up again to be dealt with. If you're a person who's trying to lose weight, this is a big topic that comes up. Weight loss, in the absence of dealing with emotional root cause issues, is harder to keep permanent. Okay, so there are reasons why my friends who are having trouble with their weights are keeping weight on. And a lot of it has to do with emotional eating and issues from childhood, things that we picked up that we were imprinted with. So it's not just a matter of will alone. All right, so you can't always yes, it's going to take some discipline. Yes, you have to, exercise and do different things with your diet. But what I've seen is the magical ingredient is dealing with the emotional and mental pieces. There is an amazing program that I saw from one of my favorite people. Her name is Jessica Ortner. Jessica Ortner is the sister of Nick Ortner, who is one of the people who brought EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique tapping, to the world in a bigger way. Emotional Freedom Technique. Okay, so look up Jessica Ortner, EFT weight loss. You'll see some videos that you can start playing with for free. And then she has, I don't know what the price is for, but I think it's probably pretty affordable, and I can tell you it's worth it either way because I've done some of her other programs for other things myself, and she's just amazing. So it's targeted emotional, mental clearing around the topic of weight loss. All right, so maybe this Mercury retrograde and this piece of information can help you to deal with that. And for those of you dealing with anything else, EFT, if you just search for EFT and anything that you're working on, self-esteem, EFT and making good diet choices, EFT and anxiety, whatever it is you're working with. EFT for fear of shining. This is another big one that's coming up for Cancers. A lot of my Cancer friends, especially that have a predominant placement in Cancer, I wouldn't necessarily say shrinking violet is exactly the way I describe it, but they're more humble. And again, if you've got a lot of Leo energy, this is going to be a little different because our Leo people are a little bit, it's easier for them to own their awesomeness sometimes. But the humble Cancer energies, sometimes there's a fear around shining or a fear about making somebody else feel bad. I'm using this early degree chart, by the way, but this is true for all of y'all, okay? So a lot of Cancers are very concerned about how what they do and say may make other people feel. They might not want to post something on social media because of how it might, worry someone or make them feel bad. So this time is in just evaluating all of that and seeing what pieces are still true for you and maybe reframing that to look at the energy of inspiration. Your story and the things you accomplish can inspire other people. And finding that within yourself, inspiring other people, figuring out what you're doing here, owning the things that you're good at, taking them out in a big way. These have been themes for a while for Cancer placements, and these are coming up in a big way now. You may have urges to change your hair or to do something different with your wardrobe. And if you're going to do small, easily changeable or easily fixable things, this month is totally fine for that. But because it's in Mercury retrograde, if you're going to do something drastic like cut all your hair off, dye your hair when you've never done it before, buy all new clothes, I like the energies towards mid-August better for this because Mercury's retrograde the whole month. And into August, as we get closer to the middle of it, is when that post-Mercury retrograde shadow period starts to clear or finishes clearing by the mid-August, and then the eclipse energies start to, the shakeups from that start to clear, and you can have more clarity. So if you're going to do little things, inexpensive things, I always like to recommend clothing swaps. In Sedona, my friends and I will gather our clothes that we no longer resonate with, and we'll have a potluck and have the ladies just like leave with all of these new clothes and then not even spend any money to do it. Things like that are amazing for this time because the stakes are low. But if you're going to invest a bundle in a new wardrobe, this is a better research time and a time to kind of try things on and like make a pin board or whatever, or a vision board of the things that you like, but not as good for the big decisions unless they come to you and they're unavoidable. So just kind of keep that in mind. Always flow with your own intuition. It has to supersede anything else I say or anyone else says, but just be aware of these transits. Okay, so there is continued transformation in the arenas of relationships, and that is for early, middle, and late. And the eclipses, which when you watch the June report, I'll go into more details about this, but you can see the very full, and these are karmic planets, all of these three, massive amount of karma in the energy of relationships for early, middle, and even you late friends, even though you could look at this chart and say, hey, that cluster's not in my 7th house. I don't have that going on. That you'd be mistaken there. And this is one of the drawbacks of knowing a little astrology or even knowing a lot of astrology and not knowing some important points. If you're not reading the cusp here, see this? Pluto is only a couple of degrees away from here. Pluto is such a powerful planet. Many degrees away it will start to influence. Even you late degree placements have the influence of this karmic fated type of energy and like healing of karmic situations and relationships for all of you. And Saturn has been dancing there, and Saturn is going to go in there soon. So the story of karma in relationships, the story of transformation, fatedness in relationships, people coming in who seem like they're obviously like soulmate energies, people who you're destined to meet or connect with. That energy is very strong in a long-term way for Cancer. So this is an ongoing theme. This isn't just this month. So these are the things most on my mind for Cancer for this month. Now I'm going to drop in the Mercury retrograde tutorial. If you are tempted to not watch it because you're not interested in learning about astrology, I still recommend that you watch it because we spend half of our lives in Mercury retrograde. And understanding the things I'm going to discuss are going to be very critical to you riding with the tides and the rhythm instead of working against it. And what I'm going to talk about is going to come up for many of you. After that, you'll see me back on the screen, or if you don't want to watch that part, you can fast forward till you see me back on the screen, and I'll talk about the general transits, some more tones for the month that I believe you need to know. So let's check out the Mercury retrograde tutorial now. Hi, this is going to be a quick tutorial of the energy of Mercury as it relates to the retrograde cycle, and the things to keep in mind that are most important to hold in your consciousness as we go through this phase. So the first thing to know is that Mercury is retrograde or in its shadow, pre or post shadow period for about half of the year. So half of our lives we are in this. That's why it's really important to understand it. The second thing to know is that Mercury is retrograde for 3-ish weeks at a time, and there's about a 2-ish week before and after shadow transit. So the pre-transit shadow period and the post-shadow transit period So all in all, it's about a 7-ish week process. So it is kind of long at a time. And the implications of Mercury retrograde are very strongly seen in this pre-shadow period, and especially in the first part of this post-shadow period, and then they tend to like linger and just sort of wear off towards the end of that post-shadow period. Mercury rules communication and mobility, so anything involving speaking, writing, communicating, publishing, your devices that you use for communicating, your phones, computers, things like that, your cars, vehicles, walking, your mobility, your capacity to be mobile, your legs, the things that make you able to be mobile. If someone's in a wheelchair, their wheelchair would be there, or whatever it is that is related to your personal mobility. One thing to note as I describe the rest of this is that for people who are born with Mercury retrograde at birth, sometimes they feel the opposite effects of what everybody else feels during a Mercury retrograde period, and that things can flow even better for them during a Mercury retrograde period than when Mercury is direct. So if you have come to notice that, it may be because you have Mercury retrograde at birth. And it also may mean that you have, even if you don't officially have Mercury retrograde, and this is definitely a way more technical thing for you to have to try to figure out, but if Mercury was in a pre or post shadow period close to the retrograde, you could experience having Mercury retrograde from the birth perspective, even though it wouldn't as readily show up on your chart. So that's an important thing to note as well. Okay, so what tends to happen when Mercury's in retrograde is that there are changes to plans. There is uncertainty or confusion about what direction to take. There are plans that were made that are called into question. They may turn out to work out, but they get called into question. Things get called into question. Relationships get called into question. The use of devices and transportation gets called into question. Plans get called into question. And then sometimes they'll work out and sometimes they won't. But this calling into question is a typical Mercury retrograde thing. The topics of travel will often come up, and this can be a fine time for travel. There is a misconception that you shouldn't travel during Mercury retrograde. That's not true. You just have to be more aware because plans tend to change. Gates tend to change at the last minute. Issues with a car tend to come up if you're on a road trip, if you haven't, gotten everything checked out first or whatever, or even sometimes if you did. Impediments to travel, changes. When you're making agreements, Mercury also rules agreements. So if you're agreeing to something, the odds are that you're going to change what you're agreeing to. So it doesn't lend itself as well for long-term or rigid agreements. There are exceptions. If you're in there, don't worry. There are exceptions. But if you are negotiating during Mercury retrograde, you're either not seeing the whole picture, someone is purposely or inadvertently hiding something from you, or there are things that are coming that you're not aware of that are going to change how you can interact in the agreement that you've made. So in general, it is a good idea to be flexible. Flexible, temporary bridge agreements are like the theme that I like to put out there to best use this energy. Let's say you have to negotiate something or you're agreeing to something, and if it's minor or low stakes, you don't have to worry as much. It's the big things, that are more important. But there could be some minor things where it would be helpful to know this. Okay, so keep your flexibility. Try to make a interim or bridge agreement. So like, for instance, let's say you're trying to get a tenant in a house or in a professional space, and Mercury's in retrograde. Something like a month to month, totally awesome to embark on in a Mercury retrograde because you can get out of it. Something like a 3-month lease or even 3 to 6 months, something short term. You can make something for a month and then renegotiate when the planets are more clear, the energy is more clear. So those are ways that I like to deal with the Mercury retrograde. And it's definitely a good time to be aware that you might have things happen to your cars and phones and stuff. In general, I don't love this time as the best time to get a new device or car unless you can help it, or unless it's a short-term or interim device. Like, let's say you get a temporary phone to bridge you over something, that's more appropriate. Or you get a car that you plan to have for 3 to 6 months, or something like that. But for things that you're hoping to keep long-term, the retrogrades tend to make it shorter term, and that's typical. Another place to be careful is launches. Big, awesome, life-changing, once-in-a-lifetime launches are not the ones you want to have when Mercury is in retro. However, let's say you're a teacher and you teach classes twice a year, and Mercury retrograde, is the time for your re-enrollment. Re-enrollment is much better supported. But do also expect that when you have launches in a Mercury retrograde cycle, that more people are going to be wishy-washy, and there's more of a chance for people that have joined that are going to leave the class. So, it's not always a reliable time frame for trying to get people to commit to things, depending on what the nature of it is. It's hard. Commitments get a little bit more difficult. So basically, the things to remember for Mercury retrograde is the flexibility, be extra careful, check your plans, your travel plans and other things, and documents and agreements extra carefully. And then anything that has the prefix re, pretty much, there's going to be exceptions to this, but rejuvenation, redoing, re-editing, rethinking, reconsidering, even rest. It's a good time to rest. Anything like that where you're like going back over something is better indicated than something brand new, if possible, unless the new thing is short term or a bridge or something you consider doing, like, oh, I've always wanted to try that. Maybe I'll take that class, and the class is, 6 months or whatever. That can be fine. What we really need to have caution with is the bigger things and the things that are higher stakes, etc. Mercury retrograde can be an amazing time. You can get lots of this stuff done, inspiration from the past, tying up loose ends from the past, and preparing for a nice fertile ground for future wonderful things. I'm calling the theme of July 2019 for all signs 3 times the manifestation power, bold new directions, and time to be brave. It's always interesting when we have a transit like Mercury retrograde that brings this eye to the past, coinciding with so much potential for new energy. So we've got 2 intense eclipses this month, plus 2 new moons this month. Whenever we have a month with 2 new moons, it opens up more potentials for brilliant new paths, and the same thing with the eclipses. But this is happening all under the cover of this Mercury retrograde. So that means that themes from the past, things worked on in the past, contacts from the past, plans from the past, are all going to factor in very heavily to the new opportunities that come. So we talked at length about Mercury retrograde and where that hit in your chart or will hit in your chart, and also what the implications are there. So we're going to go into some additional things to know about this month. The eclipses obviously are bringing massive changes. The transits this month are pretty equal as far as sweet or challenging, and a lot of them could just really go either way. So when we have a situation where there's a transit that's occurring and someone can either manifest something positive or something challenging from it, it really makes it more important for us to watch how we're looking at things. The perspective that we have on life, the perspective that we have on everything, colors, changes, effects, how we experience things. So the more you can be well rested and positive can help you to frame the energies that come in. And the more present you can be emotionally is also going to flavor this month, because with the eclipses and with the Cancer energies and even with the retrograde energies, there's a massive amount of emotion this month. High emotional tides this month, for better and worse. So amazing culminations, things that you've been hoping for forever, can just come to you at this time. I always think about the eclipse time as the vision of the spider with the web. You've spent all this time until July weaving this beautiful web. And sometimes those webs can get really big. I think about the webs I've seen like in the rainforest in Costa Rica, like, you know, taller than a person, these gigantic webs. And of course the spiders that go along with them are pretty big too. But in any case, this web that you've created, now the eclipse time and the retrograde time are both times to just sit back and see what food comes to you. It's not the best time for initiating something huge, although sometimes chance or other things force it to happen that way. But the more you can be flexible, be relaxed, be well rested, not be super intent on pushing an agenda, being flexible, the more you can observe what is coming to you so that you can strike or take in according to what feels the best with the options that come to you. It's a fine time for research, but it's not the best time necessarily to try to push something to happen. It's more of an acceptance of what's coming in and what you're going to do with it. A lot of the eclipse news and changes may have already taken place before the actual eclipses, which occur this month. So you may already be steeped in, rolling around in, coping with, for better and worse, the eclipse changes. So the Cancer energy is bringing in a lot of emotion, a lot of tilt towards the energy of home, family, housing, home projects, you know, things involving childhood psychology, upbringing, having to take some steps backwards in order to be able to take future steps forward. But there's also a coinciding energy of Leo. And Leo is going to give us the audacity to do something with the opportunities that come to us. Also a zest and a passion and creative expression. So in general, new moons and full moons have power for positive changes and things coming to a head, things coming out into the open, things coming to manifestation. When we have eclipses on an eclipse on a new moon or a full moon, it gives us 3 times the manifestation power. So 3 times the new beginnings, 3 times the drama or culmination, or things coming to a head. So it's just definitely a powerful month. Very, very, very intense. Intensity is another keynote of this time. As we talked about in the June horoscopes, and definitely if you haven't watched my June horoscopes, you want to do that because I cover the eclipses in detail. There's so much to talk about for this time period. I couldn't fit it all in 1 month. So in June, I go into detail and tell you exactly where the eclipses will hit for you and what manifestations you can see. So definitely rewatch that here in July, even if you watch them in June, so that you can be better poised for understanding the changes that are coming. But in general, the eclipse cycle of Cancer and Capricorn bring in lots of changes to home and family and work and your place out in the world, things with mother and father, and your maternal and paternal energies. Look back to 2009 to 2011 and 2000 to 2001. Those are the times when we experienced this Capricorn Cancer eclipse cycles in the past. So you might see patterns. And I have gotten this question. If those have been your worst times, don't worry. That's not necessarily going to happen again. It's the themes that are brought up that are common to have a continuum. So the areas of life that were a focus, those will likely be a focus at this time. And it doesn't have to manifest the same way that it did. Okay, so I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights here as certain dates to note that are my favorite or my most you have to watch out for. If you want a complete list of the aspects that are occurring and what's involved with those aspects, what planets and signs are at play, and what you can expect from those, definitely sign up for my free email newsletter at anniehelpsyou.com. You'll also get my 28-day virtual coaching program called Shine for free when you sign up for my free email newsletter. Plus, you'll get a written detailed email newsletter a month before, just like I do the horoscopes a month before, of the dates and the aspects and what to look out for, so you have them for your planning purpose and you get those a month early. So you can see that at anyhelpsyou.com. But we'll hit some highlights here. The new moons are going to be, well, first the new moon and the solar eclipse, 10 degrees of Cancer, is on July 2nd. So that is a time of major intensity. I do have blogs on my website for how to make the most of each new moon and each full moon in the different signs. So definitely check those out. Mercury is going to go retrograde at 4 degrees of Leo and back to 23 degrees of Cancer. We talked about this at length, but that's occurring on July 7th, and that pretty much goes until July 31st or August 1st, depending on your time zone. The whole month is covered in Mercury retrograde. We've got some challenges to look out for as far as squares and oppositions throughout the month, and you can see the details of that in my newsletter. But one of the things that I most want you to be aware of is the full moon eclipse on July 16th. That is a lunar eclipse, 24 degrees of Capricorn, lots of intensity around that time, things coming to culmination. Be extra careful and also look out for extra rewards and things that you've worked on from the past that can come in a big way. I always try to keep that period of time a little bit light if possible. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but just be extra careful around that time. What they say about the full moons with, crazy things happening is really true. Whenever you watch these mystical shows or like Merlin or whatever, it's always a full moon when these, crazy things go on. So just take note of that and be prepared to deal with whatever comes. The second full moon, or rather the second new moon, is at 8 degrees of Leo, and that's on July 31st or, thereabouts, depending on your time zone. So the second new moon in the calendar month is a black moon, and there's extra power at this time for wishes and new beginnings. So plenty of opportunities for new beginnings. This month is just chock full of them. Throughout the month, we have some challenges with Uranus, we have challenges with Pluto, we have challenges, Pluto, Uranus, kind of a theme there, Saturn. So some of the outer planets are in challenging configurations, and this can bring tests, but it doesn't have to be a be-all, end-all. Often it can bring overstimulation, and that could be a major theme of this month. We could get through this month and have complete positive outcomes and no negativity at all. Certain people will have that experience. Other people will have massive drama and lots of challenges, but there's no one way it has to go. It's wide open here. But understanding the element of the opposition is important because oppositions are pulling us in two different directions. So be prepared to be pulled in two different directions, and also be prepared to be overstimulated. This is going to be an incredibly busy month physically, like moving around, doing stuff. Emotionally, it will be busy. You will be handling things. You might be holding space for other people who are dealing with changes. During eclipse cycles, we'll often see people around us going through massive change, and sometimes we are too. So it's hard to tell at this point if you're going to be a space holder for other people as they go through these big changes, or if you're going to be one of the people going through the big changes, or both. Sometimes in eclipse time, we're going through these big changes and we're also holding space for other people doing that. So be prepared to be overstimulated emotionally and mentally. That's why this theme of just trying to be well rested is really important, because we know that you can't really handle things as well when you're tired. So the more you can be not tired and take your supplements and, do whatever you need to for support, do your walks, do your exercise, you're going to much better be able to use the energies that are present at this time. And there are a lot of sweet aspects in between these challenging ones. So there are some nuisances, but there are lots of sweet things too. Okay, so definitely go to my website, AnnieHelpsYou.com. I have an extensive astrology blog plus other blogs that you can check out there on different topics. If you resonate with how I teach, you would love to learn, my astrology apprenticeship program is open for enrollment, and I will teach you everything you need to know to do astrology professionally, or if you just want it for your self-development process, it's amazing for that as well. You can check out all the other kinds of goodies I have on my site, including subliminal recordings that I create for you to help and train your brain to the positive changes that you're trying to make. And you can also see my other professional development courses there. Definitely check out my book, Radical Prayer, Transform Your Life and the World in 28 Days. As I mentioned before, it has become a purse friend. It has become a car friend, a bedtime companion. It's just an amazing book for the spiritual seeker to really help you to use the power of word and prayer and intention to manifest the positive changes you want to see in your life. Check out my husband's website, IamHelios.com. He has amazing options now for you to use audio, subliminal, power-packed, frequency-enhanced recordings to mitigate the negative energies of transits and to enhance the positive energies of astrological transits. So we've worked together in the way of trying to figure out what resources would be best for you based on the things I see in the charts. So you can see the options for audios that can help you to maximize the transit. So you can check that out at IamHelios.com. Also, you can book a live reading at my site, AnnieHelpsYou.com, either with me or my amazing apprentice, Marilee. And you can also book sessions with my husband, B.R. Newman, at IamHelios.com. Okay, so those are the things I most have in mind for you this month. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.